Hey guys, tonight's show is going to be great. My good friend medium Nancy Matz is going to be here, and we're going to be talking about things like reincarnation and what it's like for her to be out in investigation, especially if she sees multiple eras in an investigation. I'm talking like overlapping years and how she handles that. So sit tight. In 5 minutes, we're going to be with you. See you then. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust, turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey everybody, welcome, happy Friday. Let me get the chat room up here. There we go. All right. Welcome everybody. My name is Charlotte. Welcome to California Haunts Radio. I'll be your host for the next hour or so, because we never know what happens when Nancy comes on. Or how it's going to go. It could go, quick, could go slow, could go real fun once we start rolling. Anyway, I'll be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of this lovely Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state, and that's because we want to help you. All right. If you have a paranormal issue or you think you have a paranormal issue in your home, give us a ring, give us a jingle, as they say, or shoot me an email, or shoot me in a PM message via the California Haunts Radio website, and we'll try and get things going for you. We don't charge for our services, so because we're out to help you guys out and educate and find out what's going on with your house. Anyway, I just woke up about 25-30 minutes ago. Nap time, It's rough when you get old. Gotta take naps. At least my teeth aren't blue. You know how I am about eating something like chocolate or something before the show, right? I had like those cupcakes. Those little mini cupcake things they sell at Safeway. So they were blue. So I was just wondering if if it was going to show up blue on screen here, because how that stuff dies. Anyway, so my guest tonight, not much to say. She's been a friend of mine for many moons, many years, and I just love talking to her. I learned so much from her. Oh yeah, before I forget, see, I'm getting all senile again. That's what happens. Don't nap midday. I'm running slow today. If you guys are interested in learning how to ghost hunt properly, okay? Even if you're just like a recreational ghost hunter who goes to like haunted hotels and stuff with your family, I can teach you that. I can teach you ways to do that so that any evidence you get or if you think you might have gotten, you can pretty well take to the bank, as they say. I have a ghost hunting 101 class on Saturday, May 21st at 11 a.m. And you can join me Pacific. And you can join me to that class because I do teach that. I teach ghost hunting techniques, use of equipment, stuff like that, and ways to make real clean EVP recordings and things like that. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, like I said, it's for both. This class is for both the recreational ghost hunter and the serious ghost hunter, so it can be applied to both. So if you're interested in that class, head over to California Haunts Meetup and check us out there, and it'll be there waiting for you to sign up. Also, check out the radio webpage, because right now, Nancy Matz, this show is going out live on the California Haunts website at californiahauntsradio.com. It's going out live. So I'm excited about that too. So anyway, if you're watching from YouTube, you're brand new, please subscribe. There's a little ghost down in the bottom right-hand corner, and it's got a magnifying glass and a Sherlock Holmes hat on. Please push that subscribe button. We're looking for subscribers. Love having subscribers. Then if you peruse all the videos on that page, you'll see all kinds of topics. All kinds of topics, not just paranormal. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into this show. It's Friday. It's our kickback, laid-back Friday, because I already told everybody in the chat room, I said Aloha Friday to everybody. So that's the mood I'm in. I'm in Aloha mode right now. So it's our laid-back Friday. What do we got? Under happy circumstances. Yesterday was a little heavy, I'll admit. Yesterday was real heavy. I can honestly tell you guys. Thank you. I can honestly tell you guys that after the show yesterday, and I think my producer can vouch. After the show yesterday, I was trying to wrap my head around all that, man. Trying to put that together. Boy, I had to talk to my producer for like 45 minutes. So anyway, He was a good guest, though. We'll get the benefit of the doubt. Got to stay open to these things. Anyway, let me get Nancy up on here for us, and we'll just get into Nancy and I chit chatting, and maybe you guys can talk her into a reading or two. We'll see. Okay. Hello.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Uh-oh.
I can't hear you.
Okay? Can everybody hear me in the chat room? Let me make sure I'm on here. Okay. Yeah, I'm on. Let me test my settings. Let's see what's going on. Can everybody hear me in the chat room? Tell me.
Testing.
Okay, let me check some out here.
What happened to you? I can't hear you.
Looking at my mic. Is my mic working? Yep, my mic's working. Okay. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Now I killed my camera.
Everybody.
Now I did it. I killed the camera. There we go. It's going to be one of those nights, you can tell.
I got it.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I killed my camera. It's okay. After last night, I think everybody's ears need a rest anyway, you know?
And go like this. I wanted to hear what you were talking about. Did you tell them how we met? Did you tell the audience?
Huh? Tell the audience. That's what we're here for. It's Friday.
It's Friday. How many hours do we have? You made me cry. I'm laughing already.
I clear lots of space on the hard drive.
Yeah. I'm going to turn the volume up just a little bit. Okay. Anyway, in 96, John Betancourt invited me to do cemetery tours. And that was downtown Sacramento where Sutter Ford is. And John pointed out to me that Mr. Sutter was actually buried in the cemetery 10th and Broadway, I believe. Is that right, Cher?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I had done the first.
I'm sorry, there's a hair on the mic right here, and I can see it, and I can see it like in the light, and it's driving me, you know.
I love this stuff. Oh gosh.
Okay,
I'm gonna cry.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of wind here in California, so it's just blowing my eyes. I'm just kind of like this. Anyway, so we met. I think it was 97. Her newspaper had requested her to interview John Betancourt or see what the cemetery tours are about. And she come with such an attitude. Oh, just a bitch. Put your shoulder out there. And I saw her there, and she introduced herself, but there was kind of like an injury thing going on, you know. And I went, okay, you know, we'll see how this turns out. Well, she loved it. She kept coming back. And the ultimate test was John Betancourt, because he invited me to do this and the campaign was to have me do the tours and bring people in. And we planned one or two for a few years. And the first time I took him out, he just tested me, because he had said, oh, we brought other psychics out, or mediums, and, you know, they weren't real. And they're not going to be different. He waved his hand at me. So the first person I talked about was a woman that had been over so long that all I saw was the energy of her body like that. And I know some of you listening to this had heard that story before, but it was actually the first one, and there's more to the story going on. Anyway, she says, all three of my babies are buried here. Well, of course, John, he's a tall, lanky man. He rushed over there, and it showed 2 babies. And I said, I can't help it. This is what I got. And this Sacramento cemetery has a street right in front where you enter through the gates. Well, that wasn't always the size of that cemetery. It actually extended past into and through the street to the other side. And at one time there was a headstone carver across the street. So if you drove around there, you would see where the tombstones were carved. That was actually part of the cemetery. So they moved it all back, and guess what? That woman had a baby buried up there. So they actually added that baby, to the 2 that were there, and it was never listed on the stone. And John looked at me like, right? And I didn't see her because she was dark. She had been grieving for so many years that I couldn't see her, but I heard her. And of course, then he knew I wasn't making anything up. I tell people, I can't make stuff up. I'm not really that clever. It's like, that's hard. How would you make up something like that? Another story in the same general area that was one of the first times we're going to talk about how do I see in the past, called layering. And I made that word up when I was part of the Tombstone. I had a year where I had an office, a little space in Tombstone, Arizona. And I really wanted that experience. So we had moved down there and I just had to do it. And I did. But anyway, getting back and up to Sacramento Cemetery, and there was a plotted area to the left of the main area with a big trestle top to it, like an archway. So John said, well, pick out something. And he pointed to that direction. And I said, okay, that's pretty. It has an archway on it. And I walked up to it, and this another tall, lanky man just happened to show up. And he was a nice looking young man, turning the really old clothing to me. And he said, do you know where my wife is? She's supposed to be here. I go, don't think so. These are just for the firemen. What are you doing here? And he says, well, I've been waiting. And I said, well, we need to talk about this. And I said, well, how did you end up here? You look really young. And he told me that he was part of the fireman brigade that had horses in front. And he was telling me that he was in a real hurry. He hadn't been on the force very long, a couple of years. And there was you know how they built the railroads, and a wagon could go under. But imagine how tall the fire trucks in those years with the pumps on the side like that, right? Well, the seat for it was much taller, and he looked like at least 6 foot tall. Yet in that era, that was a very unusual height. In that time frame, that men were 5'5" to 5'7", 8. But you get a 6 foot guy, so the bench he was sitting on put him a little higher. Well, guess what? He stood up just as he was going under the trestle for the railroad and took his head right off. Trouble is, I was watching it, and I went, oh my gosh, this man's head was gone. I went, if I'd seen it in person, I probably would have fainted. But
I'm waiting for my wife and he's got no head.
It was really kind of weird. I mean, like I'm watching a movie and it was like in person, and I don't know how could he have a memory of it? So it was one of the first times it started clicking in my mind. How am I watching the death of somebody, which was awful, and yet he was there telling me about it because he couldn't witness his own death. So anyway, to make a long story short, when I told John, he says, there is no such thing that happened. I've been reading all these deaths, and sure enough, guess what? Young man lost his head. And John was ruthless. Ruthless. I loved him. We had a good relationship for 6 years. And he looked it up, and he won't tell me if right or wrong until the night of the tour. And so he admitted to everybody that a man had lost his head, and he was very young. I don't know if he was 22 or 32, but he seemed really young to me. And he had lost and the wife had passed, and then he had one child. So he was kind of waiting. And I had a friend who was 5'10", 11. Her name was Karen. And she, at the time of the tour, said, oh, he's walking around. Can I shake his hand? And being a tall lady, she reached up through the trestle, and he didn't come down, but you could see my arm. I'm doing this. And he reaches down and he grabs her arm with 2 hands. And this very poised lady, bigger lady, started yelling. And if anybody in the audience went to that tour, be sure to touch base with us. She just went, oh my God, the spirit man's touching my arm. And she was yelling. And if you knew her, very, very sincerely calm woman. And I'm going to start crying again. And so everybody in the audience was electrified. And that was one of the first 2 tours where something spectacular happened. And so we went from maybe 2 to 6 that year. And we did 5 and 6 for 6 years. I made them a lot of money. They remodeled all the headstones. And it went from 150 in the hottest part of summer, which was July, ending with the weekend of Halloween. And the Halloween one was 250. I don't think, did we go more than 250? Did it go up to 300? Somebody told me once we went 300, but that seems like a lot of people for me to drag around trying to show everybody the cemetery. with that, when you're in a cemetery environment, you're walking around and you only see a few spirit peoples, but those spirit peoples in the neighborhood are going, oh, look at all those humans over there, live people, live people. Let's go and see what they're doing. And they will show up in the clothing that they died in or the era. So I'd be looking around. And of course, I'm a woman. I love clothing. I'm going to look at what the women are wearing, right? So I'm looking at these turn of the century, 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe even earlier. And I remember this butcher or this man, he had leather on. He might, well, wait a minute. Blacksmith has leather. And he had this big overall. He was a girthy man. And I was kind of like, how interesting. They don't change their clothes. Wouldn't that be like, we want to go back to something we wore that we liked. And there was a lady who died at Christmas and she still had her party dress on. Remember, were you at that one? Anyway, she was dancing around her grave and I can't see it, of course. And I said to John, oh, there's a lady in a pretty Christmassy, beautiful dress on and she's still dancing. Well, guess what? She ate some for dinner, died Christmas.
Nice.
Wow, right? Watch what you eat, everybody. At Christmas, we see ourselves last. See, I have a black and white on tonight with black pants. So if I were to die right now, what I have on, would I be what I remember forever? So 50, 100 years from now, people say, gosh, look at that lady. She's got black and white on. Was she a prisoner? It's like we remember what we were. And yes, I do see naked, all eras, but I don't know what it means. A lot of times it's because they want me to see the body shape. Or someone who unfortunately died of disease, I can see disease on the body. So a lot of people will give me different kinds of looks, but digressing, let's talk about time. So there was a lot of ghost investigations. Char, one interview, she said maybe up to 40. And then I did a lot of ghost investigations remotely. Well, with you too, Char. Everything was
Yeah.
Was it all remote? So I was working with Port Orange Paranormal, George Lopez off Florida. And this is another kind of a high point for me. We were doing an investigation of a house building, and there had been a murder there. And this man had been murdered, supposedly with a knife. And George says, well, what do you think happened to it? And I witnessed the murder. The man was lying dead. And I started describing the inside of the house. And I described it as it looked when he got killed. And the murderer went out the front door and to the right, and Char was part of this radio show. And he took that knife and to the right, there was a tree, but it was a sapling. And he pushed it into the ground. And George says, well, let's go get that knife. Well, when they look and really examine that tree, can you imagine 100, how many years, 50, 75 years earlier, this murder happened, this knife was buried there. Wonder how big the tree grew. At what place was that knife now, right? Mm-hmm. And George says, I don't know how you can see that. Well, that's a good question. How can I go into different time zones in different layers? When I talk, and I want to give a couple more examples because I find it fascinating. I say that a lot, everybody, fascinating and curious, because I'm constantly, every day, every session, everybody I talk to, I am absolutely, oh, wait a minute, I just had, my anniversary working in this world was May 4th. It's 2 days ago, 32 years every day, whether it's family or friend. I had a friend today who had a medical problem. I told him what I was picking up, and I'm not a doctor, everybody. I just know human beings. And so every day I'm working this. So getting back to what I was saying, I blend with people. I call it putting my mind to somebody. And if they want, I can talk about people from the past who've died long before they really knew that person. Actually, for 15 years, I had people visit me in my home. And when I moved to Arizona for a change, I thought I was working too much. It might have hurt me. I did come out with Graves' disease when I moved. So clearly my immune system was really drugged down. And probably everything has a reason. There's no such thing as synchronicity or synchronicity. I believe that the universe has a plan. We end up where we're going to go, right? So I want to back up here. So when I put my mind to somebody, and we do that a lot, Char and I, we just start talking and we go this way. And when I put my mind to somebody, they can't necessarily feel me, but they've often told me that they feel heavier around the neck and the upper shoulders. Entrance to time is the base of your neck. Okay. And so when I entered time, at one point I went, time is linear, because that's how we reference our life. We go in a straight line. Well, guess what? Time isn't that way. And I love Doctor Who. And if anybody remember, I have a t-shirt in there. I wish I brought it out. Time is a wibbly wobbly blah, 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 mess. And it just floats around us, but not necessarily. I think it floats in front of us, but in a spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why sometimes these spirit people will give us a time frame, or something will happen where they say, when am I going to take that trip to Italy? And I'll find, a month, but I could be a whole year off, because March and March and March and March every year is laid on top of each other, because time is in front of us, but it's all connected. So I can see a spiral or feel a spiral in front of me, which is a contradiction to how am I able to layer and enter time if all I can do for you is go forward, enter a month or time by reaching up and doing this. So someone will say, I'm going to have a promotion. When is it coming? So I enter time for your job life. And every thought, action, people, place, and thing in your life that's important to you has its own thread of time. So when I enter time here, I go forward. Behind me is past. It's all used. That's real easy to access. But forward is hard. You have to swim through heavy jello feeling time because it's never been opened before. And then I have to find that path of excitement. Yay. And enter that. And then I look at a picture and you got a different job. Because when someone calls me up, I say, no, I don't really need the title, though it's really fun to know. Everybody does, right? Why not? And it's kind of like interesting. People are interesting. So they'll tell me the details, and then I can feel the difference if you have a job change or you get promotion. So you ask me, you have had opportunities to talk to me. When is that? So I'll enter time on your job opportunities line, a little tiny thread, and then I can see that. Now, according to time, remember, time is kind of fluid all around. It's a wibbly wobbly thing Doctor Who said. But it's more or less a flow in front of us. Can you imagine me circling the earth a bazillion times? Someone wants to know whether they're going to retire in 30 years. Oh, man, it's not possible. So I feel it's really crunched up behind us. Now, time behind us may be stretched out a little thinner because it's been used. Now, kind of put your mind to that. Okay, I can see me doing that. It makes sense to me that I enter time. Now, how is it possible we do this? So how many people out there say, well, what you're doing is bullshit. Excuse me. Edit. But at the same time, how can you do that? Well, 32 years, I'm pretty busy. So somewhere I'm best be getting the right. I know. Can we edit this out before we put it up? It's like
live now, girl. So it's
old. I'm in my 70s, so I can no filters anymore, everybody.
It's Friday.
It's Friday. So I want to go to a place of your personal reading with me. That's how we enter time. Now, when you ask about somebody long deceased or living somewhere else, I have to put my mind to somewhere else. I don't have every country. I really like the people in the United States. I got tons of people, but I do have Singapore, Cyprus, Italy, France. Yes, France, Scotland, England. They're regulars. And that's kind of fun. The one is France. I think of her as American because she's there, but she lives in France. But anyway, so then I had to put my mind to them. Instantaneous. And I put my mind to the couple in Italy, and they have 3 daughters, and they live in the United States. Instantaneous to that lady, to each daughter in different states. Oh, excuse me, I talk with my hands. And then back to her, and then back to me within a second. Somehow that distance is compressed. And at one point I said, I think I exit my body into a parallel space where there is no distance, kind of like up, like a pyramid, go up and then down. But if she's thinking of me, how is she making it connect that we join and I can travel? So people say, Nancy, I want to come over and visit you. Well, I think that's great, but we just don't do that anymore. And my husband it's not in a place where he wants people coming in. And that's okay. That's okay. So we do it by phone, and people say, well, you can't be as good as in person. Actually, it's easier. And the reason is that when I hear your voice against my face, I connect with that voice, and that pulls me to you. But it's so short that it almost feels like a little mountain. I go up real fast, and then I come right down. So I think there's an alternate dimension that we can go. And I'm really trying to get this in an hour, everybody. I'm used to talking 2 hours, right? So if you can follow that, let's do that. Okay. So I'm going instantaneously. Now, I want you to remember back, it was on the history of the travel station. And unfortunately, I was planning this and I couldn't find reference, but it was a young man 30 years ago traveling with his grandpa or somebody, and it was a single engine, kind of like a single engine airplane, and they were going from Bermuda to Florida. And a cloud formation came around them. And they went, ooh, we're in a storm. What happened? What happened? This young man was the younger of the two, and now he's old, like 70s, right? And they entered the cloud. And when they did, they entered the cloud, and around them, the cloud formation started to bellow and circle around them. You know what I would have said? You go, oh no, what's happening to us? I imagine they had some strong looks at each other, right? So the next thing he said was, it became a tunnel. And the tunnel looked like cotton. It was off color and it was tight, but it was a tunnel. And they felt the tunnel moving around them. Man alive. You know, I think he wrote something up on it. I know he's been interviewed. I know he's a senior, white hair now. So if anybody has that, type it into Char's, the comments. I'd love to know who that was, because guess what happened to me? Yeah, they did that. Yeah. Yep. But I was living, now we have 2 houses. We're still trying to sell the one. If you're interested in Northern California, I have a great house to sell. It's really big on a Black Mountain. Anyway, I was getting ready to put it on the market. And this was last year. Anyway, it was too late. So I was working really hard, and I was bending over to pick up something, and I didn't connect my body with my spirit, and my body bent down, and I fell out of me. And I went, oh, fudge. Now what? Guess where I went? Fluffy, billowy, round things all around me. And it was almost like a light dirt color. Didn't you, Char? Didn't we talk about that happened to you too?
Yes.
Was it you I'm talking to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
when
I was going to point out real quick was that I had a friend who has psychic abilities. And when you talk about the other dimension, kind of, and you going kind of up into the other dimension, she told me that she saw a spirit man walk across the front yard, and he took a step up like he was going through some door,
right,
and disappeared through the door.
Yeah, I can talk about that, but a lot of things like that can happen.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, when you talk about the other dimension being kind of up, up higher, that's what she said, was that when he crossed in, he had to go up high, so he had to take a step up.
That could be he entered his house of that era.
Maybe.
So I live up there, and this happens so infrequent. I wasn't planning to see this, but I saw a spirit man walk across the street, and you know that registry in your head, you drive, and all I could see his arms, but I couldn't see his head, but I could see his legs, and it was white. How many times that happened? Like, never. My husband has seen 2 UFOs. You think I could? And he says to me, but I've never seen a spirit. So it's all relative, I guess. And after I was passing, I was looking at him disappearing off the side of the road. So how long ago did he live there, and where was the road at that time? Because I think he entered his property. But I saw these long legs, and they were like, I passed him and I went, oh, shucks, what did I just see? How great is that? I do this for a living. I've never seen anybody walk across the street. Of course, now on YouTube, you can see these milky white figurines go across streets and houses. And I mean, but I actually saw one up there, and it was fabulous. I've also seen spirits. We had a lot of wagon trains go through the area, the Siskiyou Mountain Pass, and there was a lot of Indians, and then unfortunately there was massacres. So one day Larry said, I think we have a little girl on the property, and and she was walking around with a hood. And if you go to Hornbook Cemetery, you can find families that have been murdered. And so for some reason, someone was on the mountain. Why was she walking near us? But I mean, we don't know who else is buried on those premises. I mean, it's amazing. But anyway, trying to stay on track, we're going to do this, stay on track here. So, so I entered this space, and the first thing I thought of was this show where this older gentleman was talking about what it looked like entering the tunnel. And I fell into it, and I could feel my body to my side, and my flesh could look, but I didn't have feel. So I slipped out of me into the space. The first thing I thought of was the man on the airplane. The second thing I thought of was, oops, I'm in here. I'm supposed to be out there. And I looked around, I could see nothing other than this puffy. And I do believe, and I imagine there's people out there watching go, well, I had that happen too. I love that. I think we all should experience stuff like that because it opens our eyes to the possibility there's more around us than just our little piddly piece of flesh. And once you get that, remember I talk to dead people, the past people who are passed over, spirit kind, ghost kind. I speak to them all the time. And every time I'm able to speak to a new client, I think, oh, I'm going to meet someone new. I'm going to meet a new spirit person, a new spirit man. Not to digress. I want to go back to what I was saying because there's a lot of really great people who do detective work on TV. And I give these women and men a lot of kudos to want to be involved with a murder. And so they'll witness a murder. They'll witness the process of it, getting to the location, the death, and all that happens. And I've actually turned my mind off to wanting to do that. I worked for findme2.com. I think the gentleman isn't doing that in Arizona anymore, but there was a large group of women around the world who helped find missing people. And so someone from Australia wanted a session with me, and we talked. And then she asked about a young man that had, unfortunately, they suspected got killed. And they gave her a tremendous amount of detail. But I was backing up in time when he was alive. So, but I don't want to necessarily do that because I'd rather help living people. There's so many that want to do the people who are dead and they want resolution to that. And I'm all for that. Absolutely. So I want to give a couple examples on traveling in time that got me really analyze this. Now, most of you think, well, you're overthinking it. You're just entering time. But I want to point out to you that I believe we enter a different dimension to access different levels of time. And depending on what the person wants, am I reading their mind and what it used to look like? Or they give me a reference point in time where I go. Bingo, that's it. So I'm just going reach back in time in the early 90s. And if anybody's watching this tonight, thank you very much for being here. If you were in some of these places, let us know. It's always fun to hear back from people. Seattle in the round. So this was a big shopping mall, like 3 layers. And part of being 3 was the opportunity for people to have plays. And so there was this platform area, maybe for 2 or 3 people to stand, and they would sing or they'd have a short play. And then all the people in the audience were in a round. And I just love that. Anyway, it was psych evening, asking me questions, history of the air, whatever they wanted. And I was able to. So anyway, somebody said, we're doing ghost investigations here. And I thought that was all great. And they wanted to know what I thought of the area. And as soon as that person asked, the audience disappeared. And I was able to describe the town where this building was. And I remember the wood. You could watch my eyes, everybody. You can tell I'm looking somewhere else. People said, I know when she's psychic, watch her eyes. She shifts. So I was watching the big building in front. I saw the animals to one side and all this activity. And they were just yelling. They said, how do you know that? There's no way you should know that. You come from Sacramento, California. Well, my sister lived up there, so I had a good destination to go to. So I did this event and then went to visit my sister. So when they got done, they said, this is amazing. We've never been able to hear anybody do this before. Where you were describing 100 years ago what this place looked like. Where did you go? And I says, the trigger was your question. When I entered your time, I backed up into a different era as far back as I could then see these buildings. It was very fun. So when I talk to a client, so I investigate this. So when I talk to a client and they ask more detailed questions, I try and push myself. A young lady called. This is more recent, within the last 5 years. And I was talking to her and her mother. And the girl was having a chance to talk to me. And I saw her as a middle-aged ballerina. And the court looked like, watch my eyes, everybody. She's looking again. The court was, of my perception, of the Russian Empire. And the big columns in the grand room. And what I heard from this woman, and she was a slim, ballerinas have to be thin, but she was a little larger and she felt middle-aged to me. And she was saying, this is my last dance. And it's for the emperor, the king. And she, oh, goosebump time, everybody. And so she was dancing around and it was like amazing. And I was telling the little girl this, and she started screaming and yelling, "Mama, mama, mama." So the mother got on, after calmed down. She says, my daughter's been in ballet since she was about 4 or 5 years old, and she was 17. And she comes from a life of being a ballerina. Now, why would I pick that up? It's because the teenager gave me the thought. She wanted to know why that being a ballerina was so important to her. This passion is so strong that she brought this forward. Around the same time, about a year later, this happened again. I was talking to a young woman. I mean, I have stories all night long. I better start talking quick, right? I have men's stories too, but these are really great. And so another young woman, remember, I haven't seen these people. I just hear them on the phone. And this young lady said, I really want to go into fashion. I've been designing and cutting my things out. And she was around about the same age, a little older. And she says, I just love fashion. I really want to do this. Well, I can shop for clothing. Don't ask me to mend or sew. I mean, maybe when my kids are little, right? But not now. I'm not going to do that. Nor do I have the dollars to go to what we call the designer shops. So I don't follow who's out there designing. Vera Wang, I know there's people who buy her clothing, especially wedding dresses, but I wouldn't be able to tell you from her name. Maybe she's Oriental. I don't know. I'm just like being ignorant here. And so this girl talking to me, she says, why do I love this? Or she made the imply, boom, guess what I did? I went back to a time in her past that she was so curious. She gave me permission and she allowed me to enter a time slot that pushed me back. I could almost feel it took more energy, as well with Seattle, as well as other stories, as a man who got his head chopped off. Anyway, so she showed me a past life of a woman, and the woman standing there with all black on, little curved neck like this here. And she said to me, people used to think of me as a willow branch. Look how thin I am and my dark hair. And the girl started, and she says, do you know who you're describing? I go, no. And then she said, well, do I dare say? Can I say, because this woman is known, do I dare say I'm a celebrity?
Well, yeah, whatever works.
Okay, Coco Chanel is who I started describing. I told her face looked like, her clothing, her dress when she stood there so thin, and the long black dress with the black shoes. Anyway, evidently it's a look she liked, or she was recognized for wearing that long sheath-looking dress. And so she said to me, well, do you know anyone? I don't know. And I said, I have found in my life, when I'm talking about past lives, it seems like the turnaround time, if it's going to be immediate, it could be around the heels of being killed accidentally, or you didn't finish, you come right back. But most of the time, believe it or not, it's like 25 years. Wow. And so her mom was on the computer in the other room and said, she died 25 years to the month that this girl was born.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, right? How much proof do you need, right? And so this girl, the belief system, her mind opened up. First off, I don't know anything about, unfortunately, everybody, Coco Chanel is not part of my vocabulary. I'm a country girl. So it was exciting, but it made me wonder, how can I do that? How can I go back? And no, everybody knows I do it all the time in conversation. So then we went to Tombstone, and this is the time that I got an outline, everybody. And I'm going to talk quicker here because I don't know how much time Shar is going to give me.
We're good.
Yeah. You can talk anytime you want if you have something to say, Shar. Just speak up.
I want to insert. Speaking of overlapping times, we did that investigation in Murphy's that time. I can't remember the name of the place, but it's where they sold all the bathroom fixtures and everything. And you came in remotely, and you had seen
on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you had seen 3 or 4 different eras there. You saw the bodies in the street from the cholera.
Oh, okay, I remember that.
Yeah, you told me that you were looking at overlapping eras.
Yeah.
How does that how do you sort that out? I mean, is it by the period clothing, or do you know?
Yeah, mostly about the clothing.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So when I was in Tombstone, I worked there a year. I mentioned it earlier, but I'm trying to follow a path here. So I am a walker. And so if I had a break, most of the time I would have a break in the morning and afternoon or my lunch. And I would walk through town, and it's a really big boulevard considering it was a old Western town. It did burn down a couple of times, but the boulevard was wider, even though the cars didn't drive it, the length of it, only the cross streets. So I would look on the other side of the street, and these were not spirit people because I could see different eras. Now the town of Tombstone was famous for only a handful of years, but it was in existence a lot longer. So when you go, oh, it was only famous for 5 years, but yet it had been built. And so I would see people overlapping and walking through each other. Give me a headache, right? So I was watching people do this, and I thought, they are not aware of each other. So they died in their era, and they stayed in that era. And then when I was watching for the first time, I think it was a horse going through something else. I went, someone's riding a horse, and they just went through a wagon. How am I seeing 2 at once or more? But that one in Ione was the same thing because it's over superimposed on each other. Was that the one where I went across the street and I talked to those people where I saw the Chinese line of people come through?
Yeah.
So I was reading a group of peoples in this lady's house, and they asked me about the town. And while we were talking, a wagon train with a whole bunch of people from China walking, and they were the builders of the town in that era. But yet I look across the street, I could see other buildings, and they were being superimposed upon the area that we were in. Now it feels different to me. It feels like I'm being pulled through a tornado, through a sucking feeling, because I can feel myself being transported consciously to a place where I can see them. So then what am I doing? Am I under a time funnel like this? Or am I sidestepping into another dimension to be able to see that era and that time? I think I'm stepping out into a different time space. We must have a Star Trek word. Isn't there a better word?
I think it would be interesting to get you out in the field in one of these old hotels. Because I've been with psychics who, guys, because they're always rebuilding these old hotels, like Nancy says. I've been with psychics that have walked into walls while they were going through, because at one time there was a door there.
Yeah.
They're yakking away at you. Believe me, all mediums yak. Okay, they're going to tell you what they're seeing. Yeah, waving the arms. And then, boom.
You're talking about me. Just call it.
I have other psychics that I know that wave the arms too. I mean, they're very, like this. But they have a horrible sense of direction. I'll tell you that. But anyway, yeah. So I've been with them where they have just literally walked into walls where there used to be a door.
Yeah. This is now. There must have been another one, because I saw Mr. Grant, President Grant, standing in front of the
hotel. Yeah.
And this was all by phone. All these I've done where I've seen, and so I saw this man who looked like Grant to me. I remember, I only compare what I'm seeing by looking at pictures and books. Everybody, He was standing by his horse, and he was in gray. And I went, oh my gosh, someone looks like President Grant standing outside the building. And of course, he wouldn't be there. Wherever he died, they placed him in that area. He's probably with family. So I slipped in time to an important event. So she went through the place and found a photograph of him at the building. Where was that? Do you remember?
Not only that, if you guys go to Murphy's, there's a room, because there's two parts. It's a newer hotel and there's an old hotel. You go to the old hotel, you go upstairs, second floor, and his suite is up there, and they have it glassed off. It's for people that want to pay a little extra to stay. You know what I mean? But people can like check out his suite.
So he stayed there, and they glassed it off.
They stayed there, yeah.
That's kind of fun.
It is fun.
Abraham Lincoln is one of my big guys. I would have loved to, travel to where he lived, or cool. I think the theater is still there and they kept it the same or something.
The thing is, when you talk about being on separate or spirit planes, the Holbrook Hotel, you didn't do this one, Karen did, but the Holbrook Hotel is really sad because you got these two children that run around, and they're looking for.
What town is that in?
That's in Grass Valley. Mm-hmm. And they're looking.
We did a Grass Valley there.
Or maybe we did do that one then.
Yeah, we went downstairs. We had a meal downstairs, and it was a conference, and we gave talks.
That's what it was. And the unfortunate thing is the children died before the mother.
Oh.
And they're on a different plane of existence, and that's what makes it sad. Is you got the kids running around looking for their mother, the mother's looking for the children. Different
time. Now we could almost hurt our brains thinking about that.
Yeah.
Like, how come they can't see each other? Are they ghosts or are they spirits? That's really hard. I'm giving a class if you're interested, and look me up on Meetup. But one of the topics is what's the difference between spirits and ghosts. But we're getting off track here. Right. I'm trying to stay on track.
So what we do.
Yeah, we do. And that's life. I mean, it's all interesting to me. So I want to move down to the old Sacramento ghost investigation. The city of Sacramento is actually 2 tiers. Mm-hmm. And what I want to speak to now is another phenomena. By the way, we have cats. One of them joined me here, so I don't know if Bud's going to jump up here. I was invited by another ghost investigation group into Sacramento, underneath the town of Sacramento present. Oh, yeah. And the catacombs of the old town were kind of built down there. And so we went down, and I can't remember who it was I did this with. It doesn't matter. But anyway, it was a gentleman. And a lot of times I'll say to the people, oh, it's all fun to do this. But is there an expert? Because I'm going to see people. I'm going to describe the interior. How will you know if I'm telling the truth? So they brought a historian. Nothing like put me on the spot, right? But I love it, because why should I even say anything if no one can validate it, right? Mm-hmm. So I was down there underneath, and I didn't know it was so big. Mm-hmm. And I was able to describe the room I was in. And when I looked to my left at an angle, actually we were in a restaurant, because now I can remember seeing the booths that people would sit at. And then going toward it, I saw the opening where I could see them again now, everybody. I saw the horses, and they drop people off. So it was early in the building of it. And what convinced this guy, the historian, he says, oh, that's right, we did have horses come through this area. It was, she's telling the truth and everything. There was a man standing here, and he saw me. Am I a ghost to him, or was he a ghost? But he reckoned he saw me, and I started to describe him, and he stood up straighter. He knew I was talking to him. Yeah, I could see how this building was decorated in his era. Almost hurt your head thinking about it. Like, I could see it of that time frame. This spirit man clearly was deceased, mm-hmm. or he was an intuitive medium in that space and saw me, because when I described him, he was the mayor of Sacramento.
Cool.
Right, because I got a lot of detail on clothing he was wearing, and the historian went, oh, that is the mayor. He was so-and-so. So I don't remember. So if anybody was part of that ghost investigation, let us know, because I don't remember the era that he lived. But he was a grand dresser. He was very elegantly dressed, and not common in those years. to have such finery, especially in the old West, kind of like that. Sacramento, Fort Sutter is buried in the cemetery that we were talking earlier in 1865, I think. So that cemetery goes quite a long time ago. So the old Sacramento area was established probably around the time he was making a lot of money, because Mr. Sutter went there poor and then developed the whole basin area, which started the development of all of Sacramento. He had a tremendous influence in getting people there.
The part I would like to get into, and I know I've done the underground too, and the part I would like to get into is the part under K Street. You can never get under there, because from what I understand with K Street is that there's stained glass still
under the ground,
like somehow on the sides of the street. There's parts where there's stained glass, and when you go down under the street, you see that stained glass looking down on you.
Oh, it's on the ceiling?
The sun's coming through it as you're walking underneath. But they never open that part up.
Oh, well, why don't you make that something to do?
I'll have to find out why they don't, because maybe because it's unsafe in there. I don't know. Because I know when we went under a couple buildings, and then they told us to come back up.
Right.
It was like in the morning, so there was people moving around and stuff. But I mean, it is a surreal feeling when you're underground like that, because and it's like that with a lot of towns. Woodland's the same way. Auburn's the same way. You know, any of these old towns have 2 stories because they built on top. Just like if you look at Roman and Greek ruins, it's the same thing.
Absolutely good example.
They built on top. You know, so it's interesting to go, because then you realize what you're looking at was actually street level.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's just, you know, it's just craziness when you do it. And Sacramento did it because it flooded all the time. That was the issue, you know, because the river was always flooding.
That's right. That's why they built up.
They had to build up. Yeah.
I think England did that too. Medieval times they built, and then they built over it as a foundation for the next level. Right. I like history travel stations, and I just started watching what do they call it? When they talk about the underground cities, and there seemed to be a lot of that going on.
Oh yeah, you know, but I can see where like for someone like you, it can get pretty wild down there, because you've got multiple, you know, multiple years that you're looking at. You know, it's hard to sort that out. When you talk about Tombstone, when I visited you in Tombstone with Autumn.
That's right. I do remember that.
You went off, did your own thing for a while. Autumn and I were walking down, I don't know what they call the Main Street of Tombstone, but we're walking down Main Street, and Autumn told me flat out that they were just walking up to her. You know, it was just like tourists walking the street, and Autumn kept going, well, yeah, here's somebody coming up here. And she kept going, he's wearing this hat, you know, all this is going on. So we go to the hat store. And I'm like, well, show me what kind of hat he's wearing. But she must have met up with like 5 or 6, at least, in just a half block.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Spirit people. I can only speak to my experience. I'm never alone. Not creepy alone, but they're around, and they could be around us of different eras. And people like me, okay, so reference point, Star Trek, Deanna Coy, remember the empath with the black eyes?
Yeah.
One of the shows, and it made such an impression on me, was she got a virus, and the ability to be empath or have a sense of people's emotions was taken away.
Right.
She almost went insane because she was yelling around saying, how do you live like this without the ability to touch and reach? Man, that just hit home, because I feel people all the time. People would be bad mood, and all of a sudden my husband would notice this. He says, oh my gosh, what's going on? I was, and I started to sort through it, that people would want to talk to me, and they wouldn't call a day or so before they connect, and I would feel the heaviness of their emotion. So people who know me, I'm a pretty easygoing kind of person. So if I go, blah, blah, I know that someone's going to call me who's got some serious stuff going on. And I've learned to disconnect from that. What?
I don't think these guys, the audience realizes this either. I mean, when you think of ghosts, because you see this stuff on TV, You're thinking, oh, it's nighttime. They're going to come around at night. You guys, everywhere you go, it doesn't matter where you go.
Right.
They're there. I mean, you can go to the
Everywhere.
mall. Oh, the mall's horrible. The mall's horrible. They're just all over. Or the movies. Oh my gosh! In the
Where
movies,
people eat, it's
yeah,
really busy.
yeah. And the movies they like are the
Uh-huh.
horror movies about ghosts.
Oh yeah.
I have been to so many movies with Anne or Karen or somebody where she says, you know what? There's like 4 people sitting over on the side, and they're all dead, and they're watching this movie and they're laughing at it. You
How
know?
many times have I gone to a restaurant and people, I did this with a date. Can you imagine? The guy takes me to a restaurant. It was connected to Arden Fair Mall. They have a restaurant where then you go to the movie.
Yeah.
And I've told the story before, but it's happened several times. Oh, just remembered something else. Anyway, a very large woman and a small husband walked up to our table, and they were really watching us eat. And clearly it was a 20-year, 30, 50, 19, 20, 30, 40, because the clothing was old.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked up and my date was across from me. We were talking and I stopped and I looked up and I said, this is a private dinner, go away. And I said to my date, I think they just died all over again. Who says that? And I'll never forget that. It's like, you got to be pretty okay with me to be around me, because I will do that. How dare they think they can get in our space just because you're dead? Doesn't give you more privileges.
Yeah, the other issue is too, if you go out to dinner with a strong psychic, you're going to get touched. You'll be sitting there, your hair is going to get touched, or something's going to get touched when you're sitting with them. It's just the way it is, because the psychic that's there, these people may not have talked to anybody for the last 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And that's a beacon of light. And they're like, right away it's like, oh, I can talk to her. So they go, and you're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel the energy from them,
Yeah.
when you're sitting there, or if you're at the movies or whatever. Because I remember that, and I'm just like, leave me alone. I'm watching a movie. Go away. Don't bother me. But I
It
mean,
makes it sound rude, but we're not. We're getting really off track here, honey.
oh God, let's just fly.
I know it. Can we go a little longer?
Yes, we can.
Oh,
I allotted extra time.
do you? Well, we'll go a little longer because I'm not done telling how to do
And
this.
I'm going to drink some water, which I don't usually do on camera, but you know what? It's Friday.
Well, I have my coffee.
It's
Some more
Friday,
coffee,
that's
please.
just how it is on Friday.
I want to point out, for those of you who want to do what I do, practice is everything. Practice with little steps first, okay? And believe it or not, you can look at a photograph. If you put your intent to know that person in the photograph, you can enter time to find that person in the living state.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with a spiritist church from 1990 for 15 years until 2005, when I left to go to Arizona for a while. I really wanted to have a change of pace. I was really kind of worried I was being worked to death. I did 2 or 3, 4 things a month. And you go out and you're an entertainment person, and then you have people coming home. It was kind of like a break me moment. And my husband and I had got married, and he just told me, I've always wanted to live in Arizona. So I took a vacation and bought a house. So then I moved. People do that, right? No mistakes. Anyway, so one of the things I want to talk about is energy, your energy. I have clients and friends who are just so easygoing. They're going to have a little bit more time reaching in time. I have a lot of energy. I don't like telling my age, but I'm in my mid-70s now. And I still have a lot of energy. I get tired, but I'm not as wild, crazy as you people knew me in Sacramento at 55, at 40, 42 when I entered this world. And so I've always been an athlete. I eat a lot of protein. I eat pizza. I had pizza before a big conference and it worked great. All that cheese gave me a lot of energy so that I can maneuver and work my energy. And I call it having a big motor. So if you're a calm, collected meditator, blah, 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 you can do readings. But if you want to enter time and you want to read people all around the world and you want to do it fast and you want to be accurate so you can grab that information, you build up your energy. And so I would always tell people, get into exercise. Um, I've had some health issues, so I'm not as active as I used to be. But I tell people what I do, they go, oh my God, I can't do that in 6 months. So I'm still pushing, which allows me to have the energy, not just to put my mind to somebody, enter time and give them what they need. But when I enter time or become them, I bellow out and I bump up against a spirit person who's near them. That's how you get spirit recognition. And I move wherever I find the spirit person. I then move all my life force to that person and envelop them. And they know it and they go, whoa. And they then present to me what they used to look like. And now at this time, people are so excited, spirit kind. They'll sometimes put their face right against me so I can see their eyes. Or they'll show up in a dress that they got buried in, or their wedding dress, or their favorite age. Because if you practice enough and you have the energy, you can do that. And that's one thing I encourage when more you do. So people starting out, I did private session teaching people how to do this. I don't particularly want to go there now, but I'll do groups. And it's just at this age, I want to do it different. So I always tell people, if you practice every day, you'll be tired, exhausted if you do 2 hours. But then over weeks and months, you'll do 3-4 hours. So I've been doing this for 32 years, every day for a couple, 2-3 hours. And I can keep this up. I had a very light dinner. I have had a half a cup of coffee. And I'm just like, wow, right? I
I
love
can
this.
tell you
Huh?
from experience what it's like if you don't have the hours put in to practice, because it happens to me. Well, now it happens to me more often than it used to, because when I first started, I was taking what I call hits all the time.
Mhm.
And that's when you can actually feel when something goes through you. With me, it's my stomach does a flip. And I can
Mhm.
always tell, and then I know, oh my God, I'm going to be exhausted tomorrow. And that's what usually happens. I'm down for the count for the next day. But or I feel I get the spider webs in my legs.
Mhm. Wherever your body's most sensitive. When I first started to pay attention to give readings, I would feel it on my face and my neck. The energy of the spirit
Yeah.
isn't that, but that part of your body. It could be your arms. I've had ladies tell me, "Oh, my arms are just, because a spirit person giving you electric energy." And then the conversation the other day on my class said, when I do spirit readings or something, I'm totally drained, but it's them, it's their coldness. For them to interact with you, they take part of you. So people, my hair is making me itch. I'm sorry, everybody. So when I do a reading with somebody, a lot of times people say, "Oh, I feel so much better." And I'll say, "Yeah, you got a big old tablespoon of me." And so we interchange. And if someone's very unhappy, grieving, or needing something, when I blend with them, a lot of me doesn't come back. So I can't do that anymore, because at this age, I have to pace myself a little better. Because when you call, I've got to make sure I can. As far as I was trying to tie this in, I might have lost my thread how to tie it together. When you do distances or you do layerings,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of energy it took me, because I can feel that push to get there. Over time, when you practice, you realize what it feels like to enter different dimensions. It takes less energy for you to do it because you know how to path it to that place. So when you're younger or you're inexperienced and you're pushing, I want to go into time. I want to look at this photograph and go to 1920 and tell them what grandpa was like. Or if you, someone asks you about the past, you want to go in time. You have to push harder. Over time, people say, "Oh, Nancy, do you meditate?" And I says, "No, I really don't need to. It takes me that fast because I'm used to knowing how to turn the internal switches on that allow me to go there. So it takes less energy now for me to change it. So if you meditate to get to that space, you're using a lot of energy up trying to think through how to do it. So only practice turning on and turning off the ability will you get to where you know how to do it. As that's for regular reading. when you get to see in spirit people, when you blend with somebody, getting their time, you'll have the energy to know to bellow out. I call it dropping the force.
Right.
The force is with you, everybody. You drop the force and you back out to see who's around. And that I miss. I can do it over the phone very easily. In fact, Matt Slough, Slozer, if you look his shows up, um, the Paranormal Channel, I was on a month, 6 weeks back, and we did an hour and 45 minutes of people calling in. First 10 minutes is conversation like Shar and I. And what they did was, Shar, we should do this. I don't know how to do it on Zoom versus StreamYard. They would call in and I wouldn't be able to hear them. They would give their name and their state. And then I would, over the phone, on like what we're doing now, tell them the dead person that was with them. It's not always who you want.
Right.
The one that really impacted me was a young lady from Texas. And of course, if she's here, let us know. And she says, I'm going through a really hard time. And just a sweet young voice, sweet young thing. And there was this man that appeared next to her right then, because remember, I put myself with her. And then what I do is I have to move out of her body to see who's around. So they take a little of my life force to absorb, to be able to be seen better.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just showing up for everybody to see. You have to work with it, right? So what I described was a shorter man, and he looked Hispanic to me. He was dark and boxy, young looking. So I gave the details. And if you watch that show, hour 45 minutes, I did that for everybody. And the one that was also interesting was the guy who lived in Pennsylvania. And I says, oh my goodness, your house is so interesting. I was looking at the house from the sky before I joined with his body. And there's all these spirit men in a row outside his house to the side and back. And Matt was saying, oh my gosh, he just wrote in that he lives near a mine, and there had been a mine cave-in, and a whole bunch of men had died, and they were lined up outside of his house for me to see. And what it was is they wanted recognition. They know that, remember, we have access to time. They have better access to time. And that's another show. What do spirit people do in their spare time? They have fun going in time. I have plenty of stories there too. So first off, you have to practice every day to learn to read. You have to exercise or get yourself physically fit to keep your motor up and going. When you get paid to do a session, you cannot run out of steam. Mm-hmm. You have to keep it going to give them their answers. I was double-blind tested by Professor Gary Swartz. He's on Coast to Coast many times. I met him in Tombstone. I think that's why we went there. He came in because someone had come to see me and called him and said, oh, there's a woman there. You got to go visit. He walked in and he says, do you know me? And I go, should I? It was Dr. Professor Gary Swartz. He's the one developing equipment to talk to the spirit people. And so the Soul, SOUL phone is his project.
Cool.
And he did a double-blind test on me where I walk in a room and I couldn't see him and I couldn't see the client. And he would say, we're sitting here now, just tell us who you're seeing. Mm-hmm. Boom. That's all I could do. Couldn't reach the client at all. So what I did was I knew that the client, whom I couldn't see and they did not talk, wanted me to see who was in front of me. So that spirit person came in front of me. I moved my life force out, trusting that I was going to bump into somebody, and moved up and ran into this man's grandmother. And he, on my website, nancymatz.com, there is a link, Professor Gary Swartz. I copy and pasted all that he wrote up on that process. And I'm the last entry. And there's a whole information, including the letter from the young man whose grandmother I described. I saw this very large, dark woman, big, big, big. And she had a big floppy hat on. And she took it like this, turned it around and put it on my head. And when she did, I saw she was bald. The other thing I saw was whiskers on her chin. He's Tonganese and lived in Hawaii. Mm. And I described the grandmother who raised him. She died of cancer. And we can't guess. She could have been some other culture. I wouldn't have known. but she was a large Congolese. And so on nancymatz.com, there's a link that takes you to that article. You can bypass how I wrote up how we got to that event. And so I learned to trust. I don't stress about it, because if I'm meant to pick up something, it's going to happen. And so when people say, do you get nervous, you get scared? I says, it's either going to be or it's not. No point in stressing about it. If I have the energy and I have the confidence, I have the energy to be able to push. I just knew that if there was going to be a spirit person, they were going to be right there, because I couldn't see who I was talking to. And the young man at the end of the letter he wrote to me on that page I just gave the link to, he says, you have changed my life. Like he's 20 years old, who had no belief. And now you've changed my life forever. I will always lay in bed at night thinking about this experience. And so Professor Sports had another client there. And this woman had someone die in their home, or it was a kind of connection. And so this woman just all of a sudden popped up, and I had moved my life force into the room. And so she gave me all the description. She says, look at my backyard. And she described this backyard, and I described the lady, and the woman was kind of confused. And she says, oh my God, it was over. And she says, Gary, that's my aunt. She lived on the East Coast. She had a beautiful garden. We moved her to Arizona. Guess what she did? She recreated her backyard that she had in Pennsylvania in Arizona. And he ran out to the camera people from 2020. And he said, oh my God, Nancy, she's 95% plus accurate on everything we did tonight. No, can you do that? Absolutely. When did I do that? In 07, I think it was, when he met me. But I had been practicing for 17 years. I started in 90. I think that the passion I have for this pushes me to do this more and be excited about it. Could I have retired by now? Yeah. What would I do if I retired? I'd do this. And I'm going to write these books. But so getting back to what I said, because I get off track. I love this, but the passion, you got to find your passion. If this is what you do, absolutely. So getting into time, and I apologize for getting off track a few times.
Real quick. I'm going to add, like you were talking about practicing, if you guys want to learn how to basically do this stuff, okay? I'm not as skilled as Nancy is for doing readings. However, I'm self-taught in opening and closing that door.
Mm-hmm.
I can teach you guys how to do that. I can teach you guys how to allow these people, when you see these people, you don't want them, like Nancy says, when you're first doing this, you don't want them like enveloping your body, because you're going to get knocked on your butt. What you want to do is let them in a little bit. And I can teach you how to do that, how to let them touch a finger maybe just to get some of your energy. But I can teach you guys that.
It's exhausting, and you have to practice.
And I can teach you guys how to do that stuff. So if you're interested in that, let me know, and I'll put together a level 1 psychic development class for you guys.
Good.
I just put a plug in. I didn't want to take it away from you, but
we all have different ways. I started a spiritualist church, and you people don't know my story, but I had cancer, and I was 39, had stage 3+. And I knew I was sick, but no one believed me. So I went outside of the medical system and had a mammogram. And I was 6 months from having stage 4. And a year and a half later, after I left my husband, divorced him, in my car on April 30th, my birthday, I said, thank you for my life and my sanity. And if you wish, I'll work for you the rest of my life. That following Friday, the 4th, I went shopping, as women do right after work, right? Friday night. And so I got Sunrise Mall, and the universe told me to leave. And I hadn't been there more than 10, 15 minutes. It was one of the big places to go. You want to go shop. In 1990, Sunrise Mall was fresh and new and exciting. Mm-hmm. And an ice cream shop. Farrah's ice cream parlor was there. So I got directed to Spirit Grace Universal Spirit of Grace Church. UCM affiliate. I got my ministry through Church of the Living God, Sedona, Arizona, February 17th, 92. And then I left in my birthday, April. So spirit people told me to get my ministry, and it took me a couple of years. So I got it. And when I went to Sedona to meet up with the pastor so I could be ordained in that church, Sedona looked like a cow town. It was, and it built up to this big spiritual center. And I go, oh my God, it was just, I didn't even tell people, you got ministry from where? And now I tell people, like, oh, of course you did. Like, that's not true, but it is true. And didn't know it'd be that important. So practice always.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start getting to where you're talking to spirit people, or you're wanting to think of an environment you want to enter, it does feel like a push. How you get there is you put your mind to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to go. Sorry, just did it again. So you just watch my eyes. I flipped. So I just did that to this area. So this is all farm, I guess. I'm at Oroville Dam. So up here, there's not much going on, but I all of a sudden just saw it with nothing here. Your desire to focus on that time frame pushes you through time. Past. Can I do future? It comes very infrequent, but I want to do a show on inventions that I see in the future. I don't do it very often. How do you know if I'm right? Because I'm seeing some far out. Well, we should try. Char, we should do that, because some of them are strange things I'm seeing. My son is an aerospace engineer, so he triggered me to think of the space program. Oh my gosh. So I have some crazy things. So practice inquisitiveness,
Mm-hmm.
excitement, disbelief. Make sure your energy's up. Don't go into a session tired.
Mm-hmm.
If someone says, oh, I want to know about this person who's died, get excited that you may have the opportunity to visit that era or time frame. When they say, I want to go and blend with them so you can feel that. Now, if you're a reader, you know what I'm talking about. You put your mind to somebody. When they say, I want to go, you will do it from their body. You enter their past. And going past is actually faster because it's already used up. Mm-hmm. How many decades past can you go? When I do readings for people, I can see the past lives a lot. And it's going to be part of a book. There's so many stories that how could I not believe in this? Mm-hmm. Because when I tap into something, they confirm that their interest or their phobia. If you want to read up past lives, Many Lives, Many Masters, Brian Weiss. I've read everything of his, everything of Edgar Cayce when he talked about past lives. Edith Filori, You Have Been Here Before, The Unquiet Dead, all these older versions of books without today's flowery wording. You just go back and you just nail it. Just hit, this is this, this is this, and this is this. Mm-hmm. So if you can find books on it, what that does is when you read other stories about it, it gives your brain permission to also think that way. I'm giving your body permission tonight that you can also enter time and do this. And why would I take the time to talk about this and put myself on the screen, and say this? Is because the passion is there. I guarantee you, I was an engineering supervisor at Pacific Bell, got cancer, got divorced 6 months later after all my treatments. Actually, it was a little longer than that. About 7 months, 8 months. Because November of 87, I left him July 1st. So I went through all the treatments of that time frame. And then I was looking for reason of life. And I told God, I would, if you let me live, we all bargain, right? And who knew? In those years, in 87, 88, people died of cancer. And it did come back. And I just wasn't ready to go. I wanted to know the passion of life. And so I was shown this. And then you'd say, well, Nancy, you were trained and got this way. I was born with this condition. But my mother didn't like it because my dad was always talking to his dead father. An open conversation. He could hear his dead father, and there was conversation. My mother wasn't part of that conversation. She didn't like it. And guess what? Nancy's that way. So when he got killed when I was 6, I was talking to him at night, right? Oh, man, I just don't do that again. Okay, we didn't close high school to do this. Huh?
That went over well with your mother.
Yeah, it didn't work really good. Didn't. But Bruce's mother has me recorded. I have tapes somewhere of me telling her when I was 6 years old that daddy's visiting me at night.
Mhm.
So the thing is, yes, maybe I had a bucket load of talent already, but that doesn't mean you don't have it. You just have to acknowledge it and get excited that you could do this. And they say that if you can help one person survive their life, then your life is well worth it. That
Mhm.
you've done what you were here to do. I was asking somebody the other day, I wonder how many tens of thousands of people I have talked to. And every time I do, the story is exciting to think I've entered someone's life. And
Mhm.
if I can give them that much more information to help them survive their life, then I've done a good job. Unfortunately, that's the only way I make my money. So I don't want to put a plug in. That's not what we're about tonight. But practice acknowledging that you want this, being passionate about it, building up your energy force. And then, as Shar said, the thing that's a key to this is to feel the on and off switch. I want to do this. I don't want to do this. I want to reach in time, and you will feel a pulling, a sucking feeling because it feels like I'm pushing in time. But I've done it so long that I can now feel that push. And it's kind of fun. Where am I going to go next? So this client of mine in New York, he has the funds to be able to travel. So when he went to Greece a couple of years back, he went to an area where he's intuitive enough that he felt the presence of people, but he didn't tell me that. He went to an area, he says, Nancy, guess where I was? Now tell me what you're seeing. And I can't remember if I talked first or you interrupted, but it was a marketplace. So I'm what you call the cheapest tourist alive. You take an exciting trip, let me get on the phone, tell me about it. And he said it would be fun to take me to a pyramid. Put your hands on that pyramid, Nancy. What are you picking up? I'm almost afraid that if I didn't get something, I would be so disappointed.
Mhm.
Um, but if someone else travels, yeah. My kids are all going to Italy end of this month. I think it's this month. And I said, oh boy, get back and call me because I want to see where you went. Of course, everybody's like, oh, grandma, it's like, have I worn you out, Shar? I hope not.
No,
Um,
no. I was gonna say we were talking earlier about putting together a show where you will do where you can do readings for
oh,
people.
yeah,
And so we're not gonna get to it today, you guys, but the next show Nancy does, let's do this. Let's plan on it.
sure.
And I don't know how you want to do it. If you want to just have them, we can do it even through the chat room where they can put where they're
That's
located.
how we did it with Matt, and it worked out really good.
We can do that, or you guys can come up with one question, or whatever, just one, because she's not gonna be here to answer like 10, 15 minutes on.
When you call in and say, my life's a mess, what do you see in my future? Well, where do I look? What thread of thought are you talking about?
Right,
And
right.
make it a question that doesn't give you away. And all I ask, I know people listen from all over everywhere. I think Matt's show, we had some from Canada and England, was very fun. And that's all I really like to know that. Give me the name, like Shar is a nickname for her given name at birth. My given name at birth was Nancy. But if you
Mhm.
have a nickname, let me have that name that your friends call you and the state, and
Yeah.
then your question. And all we did on that night, everybody called in, want to know who the dead people were in their life. And that was very tiring because I remember I'm sitting here. I don't know how I found these people, but
Mhm.
if you give your name and the state, I was able to do it. I did have one person call in who was a doubter. That was a little harder.
Mhm.
If you close up your life force, I can't get in there. I call it the walnut shell. That's really tough. And I called him on it. Oh, there's something going on with this individual. He's not open to me. But Matt was getting the questions, and then I would answer it. And we did it for an hour and 45 minutes. It's really fun. I
Good.
I got really buzzed on that. And
So
he did
let's
too.
figure out a date. Let's get these guys excited.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
look
I'm
at the
always
calendar. Let's get the calendar out here. We all use our cell phones. It's so bad. I'm looking at the calendar, and probably be a Friday night, like always. How does the 13th is next week? Ooh.
we think what's going on the 13th. I don't think I have anything going on, but your schedule is really busy.
Yeah, the
So
13th.
you've got hmm?
That's the 13th fine.
Okay. Oh wait, it's Friday 13th. Has anybody else got plans that night? I don't care. You wanted. I don't think it's anything going on for me.
Let's do this. Let's do readings next week, okay?
Sure.
Yeah, see? Nancy's gonna do it for you. So be prepared. We can either do it that like Nancy says, it's kind of draining on her to talk to dead people that are next to you, but you can either do that or have a question ready for her.
Or past life, or phobia.
Yeah, make sure it's a clear question too. Not what's my job going to be like in 20 years? That ain't going to happen. Just have a nice, clear, and concise question for her, or who's near me. Simple. Something like that.
And sometimes it's not who you think it should be.
Yeah.
Another one would be interesting is I don't know where I'm picking this up or why. Who's in your life that you had a past life with? Remember, I was telling you the story. Was it last night's show of a young man, two buddies together, and somehow they were together. I don't remember their buds, so I don't know if it was in person or a radio show. And this guy asked about this woman he broke up with, and I got mother. And it says, oh my gosh, I don't tell you, it's last lifetime, she was your mother. And the friend started screaming and yelling. He says, that explains so much. And so that woman tried to be the mother of this man. He broke up with her. So what I saw from this, and I explained it to him, I says, you grew up. You no longer need your mother. And the guy was just like, oh, it was great. Revelation. Okay, I just had a lot of fun with you tonight. I hope you're listening to this or watching this.
They are.
You also got something from it. And I apologize for not keeping on track. I try to.
We do that. This is us on the phone all the time too. Just you'll get used to it.
I had fun tonight, Char. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
So we will see you next Friday. And like I said, you guys get your questions ready, or whatever you'd like. But just remember, it's not going to be an extended reading either, okay? Because you don't want to wipe Nancy out. So, but you will get something out of it.
Well, it just takes so long. If we're given 2 or 3 minutes for each person, and someone says, "What's my career path look like?" or "What's wrong with my husband's? What's wrong with our marriage?" You're kind of taken from people that would want to turn if it takes 5-10 minutes for you. So it's not like I don't want to answer questions. It's not the platform to do that.
Right. All righty. Well, thank you so much, Nancy.
All right, sweetie. I'll talk to you later, huh?
Yeah, I'll talk to you later. Thank you so much for coming on.
You betcha. Bye-bye. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. All right, guys. That was fun. It's always fun with Nancy Matz. And again, like I said, if you guys are interested in learning how to jumpstart your psychic abilities, because everybody's born with these things, let me know. If I get enough interest, I will put together a class that will help you start that. I teach you how to open and close the door. The other reason for that too is once you open that door, you're not going to always run into nice things either. So it helps you to control that. It'll help you to control the energy drain that comes off of you and stuff with that too. So just let me know and we can do that. Check out the website at CaliforniaHauntsRadio.com for the Ghost Hunting 101 class on the 21st. And if you're watching from YouTube, please subscribe. There's a little dude down at the bottom corner, ghost with a Sherlock Holmes hat and the magnifying glass. And click on that. They'll subscribe you because we have all kinds of different videos. If you watched last night, you'll see that. We have different topics. If you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. Equal opportunity. That's what we do. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming. Monday's guest is going to be Shem Mellenquist. Shem Mellenquist is a former pilot, airline pilot, Air Force pilot, and he's going to be talking about airline safety and what that new 5G stuff is doing to airlines and stuff. So we're going to have a conversation with him about that. Sunday, hopefully everything goes well. I will be here to read and start the book on Lizzie Borden by one of our guests, Rebecca Pittman. So we'll be doing that Sunday, of course, at 6 p.m. And then, like I said, Monday we'll be back at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. And don't forget, next Friday at 6:30, Nancy's going to be here doing readings for you guys. So anyway, I want to thank you guys. And again, you see that ticker going along the bottom? California Haunts provides its services for free. And just like this, I'm retired. This is what I do. This is my gig. and all the equipment has to come out of my pocket and all that good stuff. It's bill time for me, so it's getting kind of nail bitey here. But if you could help me out a little bit, paypal.me at California Haunts, that would be great. Or Venmo, and then type in California Haunts. I want to thank everybody who has donated in the last couple weeks. I really appreciate it. It's great, but there's still ways to go to get these bills paid. So anything you can do to help would be great. Again, I will see you on Sunday evening, and have a good couple days.